Have you ever looked back in time and wondered if it's all real? The past is a vast, intricate tapestry woven with countless threads of events, people, and places. But what if some of those threads were missing, or even more shockingly, never existed at all? What if I told you that a chunk of history, a whopping 297 years, might be completely fabricated? Imagine the implications of such a revelation. Entire generations, cultures, and advancements could be nothing more than a grand illusion. It sounds like something out of a science fiction novel, but this is the startling premise of the phantom time hypothesis. This theory, proposed by German historian Heribert Illig in the 1990s, suggests that a significant portion of the early Middle Ages was invented. This theory suggests that the early Middle Ages, specifically the period between 614 and 911 AD, never happened. According to Illig, this period was added to the calendar by the Holy Roman Emperor Otto III, Pope Sylvester II, and possibly the Byzantine Emperor Constantine VII. The idea that centuries of human history could be a carefully constructed lie is certainly a mind-boggling one. It raises questions about the reliability of historical records and the motives behind such a grand deception. It challenges everything we think we know about the past. If the phantom time hypothesis holds any truth, it would mean that our understanding of history is fundamentally flawed. Could it be that kings and queens never ruled during this time? The implications are staggering. Monarchs who we believe shaped the course of history might be nothing more than fictional characters. Were wars never fought and empires never built? The battles and conquests that we read about in history books might be mere fabrications, stories created to fill the gaps in our timeline. The phantom time hypothesis forces us to confront the very nature of history itself. It compels us to question the authenticity of the documents and artifacts that we rely on to understand our past. How much of what we believe to be true is based on solid evidence, and how much is built on the shifting sands of interpretation and assumption? How much is conjecture, assumption, or even outright fabrication? The line between fact and fiction becomes blurred, leaving us to wonder about the true nature of our history. These are unsettling questions, but they lie at the heart of this fascinating and controversial theory. Whether you believe in the phantom time hypothesis or not, it serves as a powerful reminder of the complexities and uncertainties that come with studying the past. The phantom time hypothesis, as outlandish as it may seem, is not just the product of imaginative speculation. It challenges the very fabric of our historical understanding, suggesting that a significant portion of our past might be nothing more than an elaborate fiction. This controversial theory was first proposed in 1991 by Heribert Illig, a German historian and publisher known for his unconventional ideas. Illig's hypothesis has sparked intense debate and curiosity among scholars and history enthusiasts alike. Illig's theory hinges on the idea that the early Middle Ages, a period traditionally seen as a bridge between the Roman Empire and the High Middle Ages, is a historical forgery. He argues that this era, spanning from roughly 614 to 911 AD, was artificially inserted into the timeline. According to Illig, this period is a fabrication, a grand illusion created by powerful forces who wanted to manipulate the timeline for their own ends. He suggests that the Holy Roman Emperor Otto III, Pope Sylvester II, and possibly the Byzantine Emperor Constantine VII were involved in this grand deception. He posits that figures like Charlemagne, considered one of the most important rulers of the early Middle Ages, never actually existed. Charlemagne, often hailed as the father of Europe, is, according to Illig, a fictional character created to legitimize the rule of Otto III. Instead, they are products of this elaborate historical hoax. Illig's hypothesis suggests that documents, artifacts, and even architectural structures from this period were either fabricated or misdated to fit this invented timeline. The implications of Illig's hypothesis are staggering. If true, it would mean that nearly 3 centuries of history were entirely fabricated, altering our understanding of the development of Western civilization. If true, it means that our understanding of European history is fundamentally flawed. This would not only affect our perception of the Middle Ages, but also have a ripple effect on the entire timeline of human history. It throws into question everything we thought we knew about the development of Western civilization. during this crucial period. The phantom time hypothesis remains a topic of heated debate, challenging historians to re-examine the evidence and consider the possibility that our history might not be as solid as we once believed. Heribert Illig, the architect of the phantom time hypothesis, is a figure who defies easy categorization. His work has stirred both controversy and curiosity in the academic world. A self-taught historian and the owner of a small publishing house, he is a passionate advocate for his unconventional theories. Illig's journey into the depths of historical inquiry is a testament to his relentless pursuit of truth, no matter how unorthodox his methods may seem. Illig's interest in historical chronology began in the 1980s when he started to question the accuracy of traditional historical dating methods. He delved into ancient manuscripts and scrutinized historical documents, seeking patterns and inconsistencies that others might have overlooked. He was particularly intrigued by discrepancies he perceived in the dating of buildings and artifacts from the early Middle Ages. These structures and objects seemed to tell a different story than the one accepted by mainstream historians. Illig also found the lack of primary sources from this period to be suspicious. The gaps in the historical record were too significant to ignore, prompting him to dig deeper into the mystery. He concluded that these inconsistencies could not be explained away as mere errors or gaps in the historical record. Instead, they pointed to a more profound anomaly that required a radical explanation. Instead, he proposed a radical solution. The missing centuries were never real in the first place. According to Illig, a significant portion of the early Middle Ages was fabricated, a bold claim that challenged the very foundation of historical chronology. Illig's ideas have been met with a mixture of skepticism and intrigue. His hypothesis has sparked heated debates and intense scrutiny from scholars around the world. While few scholars accept his hypothesis in its entirety, his work has sparked important conversations about the nature of historical evidence and the reliability of our historical narratives. Illig's contributions remind us that history is not a fixed narrative, but a dynamic field open to reinterpretation and discovery. Section 4. Questioning the Carolingian Renaissance. One of the key periods that Illig takes issue with is the Carolingian Renaissance, a period of cultural and intellectual flourishing that supposedly took place during the reign of Charlemagne and his immediate successors in the 8th and 9th centuries. Illig argues that the evidence for this supposed Renaissance is flimsy at best. He points to the scarcity of architectural remains from this period and the lack of significant advancements in art, literature, or science. If the Carolingian Renaissance was as transformative as traditional history claims, Illig argues, we would expect to see far more evidence of its impact. Illig suggests that the Carolingian Renaissance, rather than being a genuine historical event, was a later invention, perhaps fabricated to legitimize the rule of the Holy Roman Emperors. By creating a narrative of a glorious past, they could bolster their own claims to power and authority. Section 5. Ghosts in the Archaeological Record. One of the most compelling pieces of evidence that Illig points to in support of his hypothesis is what he sees as a lack of archaeological evidence for the period in question. According to Illig, there is a noticeable scarcity of artifacts and structures that can be definitively dated to the years between 614 and 911 AD. He argues that if this period were real, we would expect to find far more remnants of daily life, such as pottery, tools, and the foundations of buildings. The absence of these artifacts, Illig contends, suggests that this period was not as populous or as active as traditional history would have us believe. Of course, the lack of archaeological evidence can be a tricky thing to interpret. It's possible that artifacts from this period have been lost to time, destroyed by natural disasters, or simply haven't been discovered yet. Section 6. Where are all the documents? In addition to the perceived lack of archaeological evidence, Illig also points to the scarcity of written records from the period in question. He argues that for a period of supposedly 3 centuries, there are surprisingly few contemporary documents, chronicles, or letters that survive. While it's true that the survival of historical documents is often a matter of chance, Illig contends that the dearth of written sources from this period is too significant to be explained away as mere coincidence. He believes that this lack of documentation is further evidence that the period itself is a fabrication. Critics of Illig's hypothesis argue that the relative scarcity of written sources from the early Middle Ages is not unusual. They point out that literacy rates were low during this period, and many documents would have been written on perishable materials like papyrus or animal skin. Section 7. Calendrical Conundrums. Another line of evidence that Illig draws upon comes from his analysis of calendars and dating systems. He argues that there are inconsistencies and contradictions in the way that dates were calculated and recorded during the early Middle Ages. These discrepancies, he believes, point to an attempt to artificially lengthen the timeline. For example, Illig points to the Gregorian calendar reform of 1582, which was intended to correct for inaccuracies in the Julian calendar. Illig argues that the Gregorian reform overcorrected the calendar, effectively erasing several centuries from the timeline. While Illig's arguments about calendar systems are complex and technical, they essentially boil down to the idea that the dating of events in the early Middle Ages is not as straightforward as it might seem.